The president this week made a decision to go ahead and say he was now going to say that same-sex marriage is okay. It was somewhat prompted by the announcement by the vice president, or at least the answer to a question. I don't think it would be characterized as an announcement when he was on Meet the Press with David Gregory on Sunday that it was okay. He was entirely comfortable. So let's put it in perspective. Alan Kelly, CEO of the Bethesda-based consultancy Playmaker Systems. We always go to plays2run.com for the periodic table of political elements in plays.
Good morning, Tim.
Good morning. How are you today?
I am well, thank you.
Eschewing the flip-flops today, I see.
Eschewing the flip-flops.
Yes. Last week, Alan did a little sailing, so he got a little early start and joined us. I'm letting people in on things that I probably shouldn't. But
it's all right.
Anyway.
We did well. We didn't do that well, but we did well.
I have here, it looks like a very official presentation, Plays for the Presidency, the evolution of a same-sex marriage policy play, deft strategy or damage control. All right. This is something that, the president, that for months we've been hearing this evolution. It's actually been quite some time we've been hearing evolution about same-sex marriage. The president for a long time saying he approved of civil unions, but marriage was still a man and a woman, but his position was evolving. And now we've heard that he was going to say something even before the eventual election, although there's still some question about whether he would have done that. How does this play out to you?
Listening to Adam Belmar coming in and listening to Dana Milbank, I think that to coin a phrase, we're not talking about evolution. We're not studying evolution. We're studying calculus.
Yeah. Really?
Oh, sure. I mean, there's political calculus. There's no such thing as coincidence in politics.
I remember you've said that many times every week.
And I steal it from somebody. I wish someone would tell me who it's from, but I think it's right. And I like to put myself.
I can tell you, Fred Allen said imitation is the sincerest form of television, but I still think imitation is the sincerest form of politics too. So.
Well, I like to put myself in the shoes of David Axelrod, who at this point in the game is calling a lot of shots. Mm-hmm. He's sitting in Chicago. I don't know where he sits.
That's where he is.
Yeah, and he is the master puppeteer. He is a great strategist. He has a great client on his hands. And it occurred to me as all this news came down that it wasn't shaping up actually to be all that great a week for Obama, Biden, 2012. Because if you think about it, here's what was going on. You had Greece and France. Socialist parties were returning to power. You had Moscow protest of Putin's return to the presidency. You have, a stalwart in the Senate, Richard Lugar, being upset and thrown out from a 30-year term. All of those things, if you tie them together, then some are right, some are left. It's not necessarily ideological, but what they all spell together is an environment of upset.
And
it is not a good
reaction to incumbency, I guess.
It is not a good environment for incumbency.
Right.
So if I'm Axelrod waking up to Sunday coffee, I'm thinking,
Call Vice President Biden and say, hey, tell him you love gay marriage? Or?
Well, and then all this comes down. You go, okay, well, what really happened here? And everyone, of course, is so terribly cynical that Biden could be part of calculus, because he's so unpredictable. We've talked a lot about surrogates, and surrogates can be close, they can be far, they can be credible, they can be not, they can be high control, they can be low control. Well, he's high credibility, low control. Mm-hmm. But either way, you got to figure, okay, so they say,
I love the way you are able to categorize these things. This is so cool.
Well, this is what we teach.
Exactly.
And finals are over, so I'm a little fresher now.
Low control.
Well, but you understand.
Absolutely. I get it totally.
If you're a high credibility person, I would want to recruit you to my party, to my fold. But if you're high credibility, you probably have a lot of juice. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be able to control you well. So you're in this constant trade-off. Well, okay, so it seems pretty clear that they're very intent on playing the same-sex marriage card. To take it down to a trivial level, and I'm sorry.
Right.
But
I understand because they said this was something that was going to come out before the election.
So we don't know all about what's happening. We've learned a little bit more just over the last cycle that Biden did jump the gun, that he did apologize. But up to that point, you're thinking, okay, what were they going to do? Were they going to basically try to recruit Biden and Arnie Duncan to say, listen, I want you to go out. I want you to express comfort in this. Okay, Duncan, then you do the same. Okay, and then we're going to bring in Obama. Okay, they've got a master plan. Maybe it happened that way. It doesn't look like it. Mm-hmm. The other way it happened, of course, is what you have to call a broken play. where Biden goes off and he kind of does his thing from the heart or however, for whatever reasons he does
You
it.
were supposed to run off left tackle. Instead, you decided to pass.
Yeah.
And this is totally different. But that doesn't mean it can't work. You can rescue it, right?
Well, that's right. And this is one of the ways in which I think Axelrod is just so good. I think he was left, I so obviously am not in the room and I can't read his mind, but I have to think that where he is really good is that he stays calm. They go, okay, we have a situation. The vice president is playing rugby, not football. He is going left or right or whatever. So we're going to have to.
He's in a scrum.
We're going to have to adapt. Now, what will we do? So I developed, this is something that we sometimes do to understand how the strategies or the plays unfold. We map them.
Okay.
Now, I am aware that this is radio, so perhaps we should call this a timeline.
Oh, very good. A map works fine. People can imagine these things. They have great imagination.
It is online at the blog.
Okay.
At playstoRun.com.
Okay.
On the Plays for the Presidency blog, you can look at this or you can download it as a PDF. But here it goes.
I noticed you picked a picture of Vice President Biden with his eyes closed.
Well, it's what was on what was on YouTube. It was a WTF sort of picture, and I think that's appropriate. Okay, so move number one. We've got 6 moves.
Okay.
This won't take a second. But Biden says basically, look, I'm absolutely comfortable with the fact that men marry men, women will marry men, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Duncan comes in and says, in so many respects, me too.
Secretary of Education already does.
That's right.
In his speech on that next day.
That's right. Now, at that time, we didn't know, geez, are they running a trial balloon?
Right.
They might be doing that to test a reaction to see if now's the time to do it because it's going to be a bad news week. They think it's time to do it anyway. Or is it just simply Biden being Biden and, issuing some sort of, fiat or claim? Okay, so step 2 then, the mirrors come in. That's a particular play where you start to get evidence and reaction, and basically the press goes nuts. They're asking all sorts of questions
and not getting a lot of answers from Jay Carney. Except this is consistent with the position we've held all along.
No, they're asking like, okay, look, is Biden off script? Is Duncan off script? Is this a planned play or a gaffe? Are we being played? Are we being played by Obama, or is Obama being played by Biden? Is the White House in control, or are they in damage control? What the hell is going on? And then Politico makes a very interesting scoop. They're saying basically, look, Robin Roberts has got the interview, and it has been hastily arranged. That tends to indicate, that there's a
It's
command,
a reactive play. It's not.
It's absolutely reactive, and
right.
We always talk about command and control and influence and strategy, and the more control you have, the better things tend to go. You get this sense that this is not that they are running on the fly.
Okay.
Trying to adapt to a gaffe, not a trial balloon.
All right.
So supporters come in. You expect that same-sex marriage supporters would have some things to say, but they're somewhat circumspect because they don't want to jinx the deal, basically. Mm-hmm. But you do hear things like, look, this could be a great step in America's civil rights. So they're running screens. They're sort of associating this thing with big possibilities. That's good. Big symbols. You hear things, you start to hear things creep in from opponents of same-sex marriage, like this will divide America, endanger our families, fuel the war on religion, these other big sort of, issues and symbols that they bring in. Okay, so the stew thickens, and then boom, Obama's there with Robin Roberts, and that's being merchandised beautifully by ABC, you have to say. And he says basically, look, I'm comfortable. Okay, and Roberts pursues him a little bit. She says, were you pressed by your vice president? And he sort of laughs it off, and he says, Joe will be Joe.
Got a little ahead of his skis.
Yeah, great analogy. And so then they have it. And then the supporters come out and they say, Mr. Obama, you're the best. You have Romney coming out and giving sort of a remarkably even-keeled, if not tepid, sort of statement. Things like, look, this is a state's thing. My preference is marriage. It's a tender topic. I realize. I haven't seen, at least in the first cycle, the Republicans coming at this as hard as you might have thought. But at any rate, at the end of the day, you have what was going to be kind of a bad news week for the president. All this environment of insurgency, bad for incumbents, erased Lugar's gone, Putin's gone, Greece is gone, France is gone, and it's all what they're all talking about is sort of the American dream and this notion and Axelrod and I think his gang have been able to return the president to his brand of transcendency, which up to this point I think is lost. And I should have said that from the get-go.
No, that is a really good point. It hasn't come up this week. This is in the midst of it. It does drive the confusion. It is a distraction, which is something Tom Osloom had said with this ad that they just put out, and it's not so much that they're capitalizing on it only. It's just that they're returning his image, as you say. This is now rebranding him or reminding people that this is who he is. That's
their big lift, and I think after fashion, the campaign at times gets very, very transactional, and a little nitty gritty, a little tit for tat, bang, 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 and that's not really good for Obama. He's the big thinker. He is the transcendent, leader, and this puts him back in that post. Now, I think as Adam Belmar pointed out earlier, or maybe it was Dana Milbank too, that this does potentially not play away. It really does look very, very handled. No matter how you cut it, and there will be some interesting second-day reactions. And
does that look handled though to people, professionals like you, and the people like me who cover this all the time, or to the average person on the street? Does it come across as handled, or are they getting this only through the filter of what much smaller dribs and drabs rather than? I mean, the people who are listening to us love this and are really in depth into it, but I mean, on the average, it really has taken over the news cycle around the country, even on local TV and radio stations, and you wonder if that means that it's good for him and it's not so much a problem of being considered heavy-handed.
I think the fact that I'm here on a global radio medium talking about moves and countermoves is proof enough that we all of us, whether you're a political junkie or you're just a sort of a day-to-day average follower, I think we are becoming as interested in the motives as we are in the news itself and the information. I do think that the average person naturally senses at this point gamesmanship. Their radar is bright red.
They're seeking the truth in some ways, I would guess.
That's right, and so they want to know how it works, how it's presented. And so I think people are actually very, very tuned in. It originally started in sort of its ancient form now as spin, and it's evolved. I call it influence strategy. Some people in the business environment call it non-market strategy. But either way, it has all to do with the management of assets which are no longer hard, they're soft. Reputation, brand, trust, credibility, spin, all these things are these soft things that we have to learn more and more about. And in this case, we have a Playmaker master, I think, in Axelrod, who adapted to a very, very unreliable surrogate and did pretty well for the week.
You know, when I was in college, and I'm going to admit this now, I used to have a bad manual typewriter, and, I didn't like using whiteout or those little pieces of paper you could stick in there. And what I used to do sometimes is I would make a mistake and type the wrong word, and I would actually rewrite the sentence rather than go back and type the word. And I was thinking of that because that was my way of making my way around a big mistake. It was a lot easier to do that than what David Axelrod does, but that was the way I handle it. Always fascinating. Plays2run.com, the whole strategy is laid out there, right?
You bet.